Good afternoon, all of you. Welcome you all in this platform of KSG, and this is the initiative of Prelims Connect. So, in this particular initiative, we discuss few previous year questions, and which is helpful for your Prelims 2023. So, let's begin today's session, and this is about the economy. And the first question on your screen is about economic growth is usually coupled with deflation, inflation, stagflation, hyperinflation. This is something oftenly you will find in the news that one economy is struggling with the stagflation, or one economy is struggling with the inflation. Different mechanisms are executed to control those problem. So this question is based on in that kind of scenario or problem. So this question is saying, often we see economic growth is coupled with what? Deflation, inflation, stagflation, hyperinflation. So the most appropriate answer would be inflation, because when we say economic growth, that means the goods and services in terms of money or monetary terms, goods and services increases in an economy. So when we say the money value or in monetary terms, goods and services increases, somehow an economy experiences mild inflation or rise in price level. That's why this question is all about, this has been asked by UPSC, that when we say economic growth, this is related to which of the following, or what is that situation which also we see along with the economic growth, that is inflation. If you see the stagflation is this term which is given in the C option. Stagflation is very often seen in the news. You will find stagflation means inflation is there in the economy, but unemployment is also simultaneously occurring, or you can say unemployment in an economy is increasing along with the rise in price level. That is stagflation. Stagflation is means stagnant plus inflation. Stagnant plus inflation. That means economic growth is not there in the economy. Unemployment is increasing because more number of people are losing job, but inflation or the price level of goods and services are rising the economy. That's why this term is stagnation or stagnant plus inflation, what we call the deflation. Okay. Hyperinflation is something the increase in the price level at a very high rate, let's say 200%, 300%, 500% increase in rate, that we call the hyperinflation. And deflation is something the downward movement of the economy or decreasing the price level, what we call the deflation. Okay. Now coming to the next question. With reference to Indian economy, consider the following statements. Now if you see these two statements, the first one says the rate of growth of real gross domestic product has steadily increased in the last decade. Second statement says the gross domestic product at market prices in rupees has steadily increased in the last decade. If you see, both the statements are related to what? Trend questions. Because if you see the nature of questions or the types of questions has been asked by UPSC, you will find what? Different types of question: terminology based question, trend based question, concept based question, fact based question. So this is something trend based question. Now what exactly they have asked in this particular question? One term they has been they have asked, that is real GDP. Other one is the nominal GDP or GDP at market prices. Now when we say real GDP, that means we simply refer to the volume of goods and services are produced in the economy. The volume of goods and services are produced in the economy. When we say the nominal GDP, that means the monetary value or the money value of goods and services, whether that has increased or decreased, that is your nominal GDP. GDP in terms of monetary value, or goods and services in terms of monetary value. So these concepts have been asked. Now, in the first statement, it is said steadily increased. If you see in both the statements, it has been used the word steadily. That is something very extreme form of statement. But if you see the the fact of the statement, then the first statement is something as is an incorrect one, because it says real gross domestic product has steadily increased in the last decade. Steadily increased means there is no fluctuation, it's simply increasing at an increasing rate, no fluctuations in that trend. If that is the fluctuation you will find, then this is something not steadily. So when we say steadily increasing, that means the graph is something upward direction. But do you think this real GDP or GDP in terms of goods and services increased? This is not the correct one. But if you see the monetary terms, the money value of goods and services, of course, this has increased because of the rise in price level. The rise in price level. Okay, that's why the second statement is correct one. This question is again something related to the performance of the economy post-liberalization era. Post-liberalization, that as you know, we adopted the LPG after 1991, and the first statement says share of agriculture in GDP increased enormously. Increased enormously. That means very significant increase in the share of agriculture in the GDP. Do you think is it the correct statement? If you see the growth rate of agriculture, or simply I would say the share of agriculture in the GDP, then in the in 2010-11 it was around 16%. After 10 years, 21-22, you will find that the share of agriculture is what? Only 20%. It's struggling. Although it could have been increased more than that, but due to this COVID year of 2.5 years, it was struggling. But if you see from 16 point something to 20 point something, or around 20%, that means it has not increased enormously. Okay, that's why the statement is an incorrect one. Share of India's export in world trade increased. Of course, if you see the India's export policy, gradually we are working on that, the government is working on that, and we are trying to have a familiar export policy so that our export can increase. And now we are more of giving emphasis on this Atmanirbhar as well as the Make in India, so that we can increase our export basket in the global trade. Third, FDI inflows increased. Of course, the FDI inflow has increased. If you see the 90s era, and then now in the present time, you will find this has been increased enormously. The FDI rate has increased. Indian foreign exchange reserve increased enormously. Yes, of course. Now it's something 500 plus billion US dollar. Okay, so in 1991, we had, when this crisis, balance of payment crisis happened, we have seen that barely we had 15 days foreign exchange reserve left. But after this 25 years of liberalization, we have seen we have this 500 plus billion US dollar of foreign exchange reserve, which is maintained by the RBI. Okay. Next question, consider the following statements. This is very basic question. This has been asked in 2018, and this has been borrowed from the NCERT book. You see this question. This question is all about the human capital formation. If you say capital can be divided into physical capital as well as the human capital. When we say human capital, this is something related to what? This is something related to health. This is something related to education. This is something related to skill development. So, investment in the human capital, what we can say, investment in health, a good health, or with a sound health, an individual can contribute in terms of economic growth, or contribute economy in a decent amount. A well-educated person also can contribute in India's or a country's economic growth in terms of what? In terms of research, in terms of innovation. Okay, so these are what are again you can say investment in the skill. If you see the trend from 2014 onwards, we are so much emphasizing on the skill development. Why? Because if you see the kind of development that India has lagging the growth in terms of manufacturing unit, and there are many such factors which something lagging in manufacturing sector. That's why we can say the growth rate or the share of manufacturing sector in GDP is something very constant or stagnant. It's not uh, performing as per our expectation. So why? Many such factors are there, and one of the factor was that lagging skills. We are our people are not skilled. Our labor force are not skilled enough. They are not updated with respect to recent development of technologies, ideas, and all. So when you more emphasize on the skill development part, that will again contribute to the economic growth and development. Now coming to the question, individuals of a country to accumulate more capital. This is the first statement. Human capital formation as a concept is better explained in terms of a process. The first, individuals of a country to accumulate more capital. Second, increasing the knowledge, skill levels, and capacities of the people of the country. So when we say human capital, this is something related to knowledge, skill level, and capacity building. Capacity building. Okay. Accumulation of tangible wealth. Tangible wealth means you can say it could be a physical capital, but not human capital. Accumulation of tangible wealth, your property, your you have 2 to 3 flats, you have vehicles, you have tangible wealth in terms of properties, you have gold. So these are what? Tangible wealth that you have accumulated. But what is that intangible? Better education facility, better skill facility, better health care. Okay, so these are intangible one. So when we say human capital, first one is the knowledge, skill level, and capacity building, and the second one is the accumulation of intangible wealth. Okay. Now, the national income of a country for a given period is equal to, it's a very basic question, but it's a tricky one. Let me tell you, if you understand what is the meaning of national income, most of the students, they will go for what? Could be total value of goods and services produced by the nationals. Other students may go for the sum of personal income of all individuals. But what would be the most appropriate one? When you define GDP, what is that? Gross domestic product. The very definition of GDP says the money value of all goods and services. Money value of all goods and services, and they are what? Final goods. Final goods are produced in a particular year, in a particular financial year. Okay. So if you see the options, then D is the most appropriate one. Money value of final goods, because when we say GDP or national income, we simply exclude the intermediate products, intermediate goods, because you do not count them. So money value of final goods and services produced in a given period or a given financial year. So this is what the national income is all about. Okay. So thank you. So this much was the topic or questions we have discussed. Tomorrow we'll meet, not tomorrow, from Monday onwards, again we'll come with new questions, new themes. Till then, all the best and study well, prepare well for your prelims. Thank you.